Hello, everyone, and welcome to the RPO Leadership Forum Series. This is Tim Oyer. I'm with Advanced RPO, and today I'm joined by Jenifer Khim, Talent Acquisition Executive and founder of Operant Consulting. Our discussion today is imperative, we feel, for any size company in any industry and no matter where you're located. It's the business case for investing in talent acquisition.
Yes, thanks, Tim, and hello, everyone. A little bit more about me. I've been working with organizations and human capital services firms for over 20 years to help them better understand their talent needs as well as their current capability to deliver on those needs. And then I work with them to build, transform, revise their people, process, and systems in order to optimize their talent acquisition outcomes. My background is in industrial psychology. I combine that with some business administration training that I have, but more importantly, dovetailing that with my years of experience, partnerships with others like Tim, in order to bring what I think are new ways to think about problems in order to solve them in today's current market.
Thank you, Jenifer. And I'm Tim Oyer. For over 25 years, I've been collaborating with companies of all sizes, from startups to Fortune 1000, to assist them in achieving their goal for possessing a reliable, efficient, friendly, compliant, and results-driven hiring program. I'd like to cover real quickly, at Advanced RPO, we possess one of the most experienced leadership and delivery teams in the industry. We embrace the fact that hiring is hard, and we're devoted to make hiring easy for you, as our only business is in designing and administering hiring solutions for organizations. You should know that Jenifer and I are both very passionate about all things talent acquisition. We actually met over 10 years ago, and almost monthly we have powwows that go from 15 minutes to well over a couple hours, revolving on how we can solve the world's problems as it relates to recruiting and talent acquisition. So this will be a conversational format, and I'll be asking Jenifer her thoughts around key areas, again, around the business case for investing in talent acquisition. Today, we'll cover these topics. These will keep us in check for, again, helping you to take assessment of your current talent acquisition program, and hopefully there's some really good nuggets for you to be able to take some action as well. So one of the first things we'll start talking about to set the stage for our discussion is talent, or is the labor market, and I really love Jenifer's perspective on this. So can you please just share your thoughts on the labor market, Jenifer?
Yes, and actually it is really important that talent acquisition leaders and recruiters, and also hiring decision makers and business executives, understand that the labor market is a real market, a living, breathing market, just like the stock market, just like the consumer goods market. And what that means is that core economic principles apply: supply, demand, and price equilibrium, price being salary in our case. And that means when supply is low and demand is high, which is the case for virtually all skill sets today in the United States, is that you have to have the best teams and process and techniques to bring talent into your organization, because it's not going to be easy, as Tim alluded to earlier. It also helps recruiters and talent acquisition leaders have bona fide business discussions. They're using real business data to educate their audience, leaders, hiring decision makers who may not understand labor market dynamics and the challenges associated with bringing top talent into the organization. So being able to use business relevant information, such as labor market statistics, helps them articulate why misaligned skills requirements with salary bands almost always makes you uncompetitive in the battle for talent. So speaking in business terms, just make sure talent acquisition teams, your recruiter and leaders, become true advisors and partners. So it's really important to understand that. And this illustration is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and I think basically what it's showcasing today is that supply is low, demand is high, and I think the core takeaway is that you will have to pay the going rate for a particular skill set. And what a manager or an organization may have established as a target salary can often be irrelevant, because the labor market dictates the going rate. And if you need a particular skill set badly enough, you're going to have to pay that going rate. And so that's just kind of the high level takeaway. But making sure you really understand what's going on in the labor market and use the data that's available to you is going to be really instrumental in building the business case for investment in talent acquisition.
Great. I love hearing that every time we talk, Jenifer. But let's move forward. So what does the labor market tell us? And I'll grab a couple of these things. I'll have Jenifer jump in as well. But, as we just covered there, at 3.6% unemployment, most individuals that you'd want to interview are already employed. So again, it's working on who you are, your value proposition, et cetera. It's going to make a big difference out there. And we also know that to win the best candidates, you must have a commitment to the talent acquisition function, hence why we're talking today. But you need to arm your recruiting team with the right tools, the right skills, and ensure you have the right expertise and experienced individuals that are representing your company out there. What does the market tell you, Jenifer?
Well, kind of expanding on, some of what you've just said, and, that what this means is most of, as Tim said, they're currently employed. So your recruiters are going to have to extract candidates from their current employment situations, and you're going to have to pull them into your organization. So simply posting a job and assuming that someone's going to find the opportunity you have, whether it's on an aggregator like Indeed or on your career site, and that they'll come to you is not a viable strategy for today. And it hasn't been for a long time. But to maybe capitalize a little bit on what Tim had said is how important it is, given the labor market, to have the appropriate teams, tools, systems, and capability, because your recruiters have to be able to attract those candidates. In order to do that, they first have to have the knowledge and data sets and tools to even understand who might be potentially qualified to do this job. Then how do they reach out to them? How do they engage them? What mechanisms can get them in front of those candidates? And how do they attract and vet those passive candidates to bring them into the opportunity? And, this is candidly where RPO firms actually probably have a leg up, because they have investments in proprietary sourcing tools, mechanisms to do that outreach. Their recruiters are trained. They have applicant tracking systems that are configured to capture the data that help them winnow and sift through candidates to ultimately bring the best talent into the organization. So it's actually really important that you think about how much that engine that you have to build, and who should be on that team and what tools you should give them, because that's the only way you're going to really thrive and win the battle for talent in today's market.
Good. And let's segue into a couple other items here I'll pull up on the screen for you, Jenifer.
Okay, so the top one about this, extracting talent from other organizations is going to push salaries upward, and that's true. And that's because, when you're seeking individuals with a skill set you need for a particular role, you're generally looking for those who hold comparable roles today. They've been there, they've done that, that's what you need. You want someone to hit the ground running. And although individuals may leave one company to take a comparable role at another company if there's something else that's intriguing about it, better opportunity, better company, but they're rarely willing to do that without a pay increase. And so basically what that means is most candidates today, not only are they currently employed, so they already have one other option to stay where they are, oftentimes they have other options as well. So the highest bidder wins, all other things being equal. So other things you can kind of look at is, well, can you make all other things not equal? And can you tip them in your favor? So think about your employment brand on Glassdoor and Indeed. That can tip the scales in your favor. Now, just keep in mind, recruiting doesn't really control what those corporate ratings, the CEO ratings are. They work with what's out there. They deal with it. If it's good, it's great. It gives the recruiter an advantage. If it's unfavorable, it's a handicap. So those are things that you can be thinking about it as an organization. And for talent acquisition leaders, taking data like that along with employment labor market data to other key decision makers, you're starting to, again, to have a seat at the table and to drive decisions that need to get made in order to win, again, this war for talent that's been going on. So you have to kind of think about tipping the scale in your favor. Another way you can do that is have mechanisms and the appetite for hiring more junior individuals who may be high potential, and then develop them and help them emerge into the role. And this also requires recruiting teams that can do both. They can find those people who've been there, done that, but they also have the tools and knowledge to find individuals with the core capacity to be developed. And again, the more robust your recruiting teams are, the stronger your recruiters are, and the better tools you give them. Investing in your talent acquisition functions gives you multiple recruiting channels to bring that talent into your organization, so you can tip the scales in your favor.
Good, great content. Thank you. Again, these are exciting topics for everybody that's listening out there. Next, we want to just share key indicators of a talent acquisition optimization. So as you can tell, again, Jenifer and I both share the same opinion that it is imperative an organization optimize their talent acquisition function. It's a commitment to do that. It's also one of the easiest things that a company can do, but somewhere down the road, a decision was made to make it a priority or not. Now what we want to do is just share key indicators for you to compare against your current talent acquisition function, and put together your roadmap to potentially how you can optimize your TA function. Jenifer, what I'll point on here is the hiring manager and leaders have positive reviews. What's your perspective on that, please?
This is almost like the ultimate hallmark of knowing that your talent acquisition function is optimized, in that it is common knowledge that managers and leaders within your organization think highly of the recruiting function in general. And by that, it means they're confident that their recruiting team will deliver the talent that they need to fill their critical roles. That means they're willing to work side by side with the recruiters because they respect them, and they consider their recruiters assets and actually critical to their own success, because they understand their teams and they bring the talent that's needed. And frankly, in many cases, many organizations that I work with initially, that is not the case, where recruiting is kind of a second-class citizen in some instances, and therefore managers are going outside to their pet agencies, willingly paying 20 to 30% of starting salary because they trust those organizations or agencies more. And if that's the case, you're probably not making the proper investment. Do you have the right recruiter? Do you have those recruiters who are confident and who can have conversations? Do they have the data? Are you advising business? And if not, you probably have some work to do.
Good points, and hopefully there's some good notes being taken on that one. Now, this next topic, I just get like to razzle you about it, Jenifer, but talk to me about the recruiter and the hiring manager relationship.
This is also a really important one, and it's one that I can willingly get on a soapbox and talk about. And it's so important that you have a recruiting function where your recruiters and managers engage as colleagues and peers, versus the manager being the internal client, and the client's always right, and the recruiter being a service provider. That, or your manager has higher status than the recruiter. That's a dysfunctional dynamic when you're working to fill an open position. Now, that doesn't mean that a manager might not have a higher status on an org chart. In many cases, they will, not always, but they shouldn't have a higher status during the recruiting event. They have to be peers, because neither one, recruiter or manager, can complete a hire by him or herself. Both parties come to the table and they do different things. If they don't respect each other and appreciate the work that the other's doing and the knowledge and expertise they're bringing, it will be a struggle to get it done. And that also kind of goes back to where your team might not be respected. If you're working as peers or colleagues, you're rolling up your sleeves, because hiring is hard. And you're probably going to have some give and take. And when you have a unbalanced relationship, oftentimes the person, the client, is not willing to give. They only want to take. So you have to make sure you have that partnership. And it requires really rock solid recruiters, good tools, good process, good data.
Perfect. Perfect. So Jenifer, I'm monitoring the time. I just want to make sure we swiftly move through these next couple ones. But another critical metric for folks to be aware of is the manager to interview hire ratio.
Yes, this is a strong indicator. And what this means is that the manager only needs to interview a couple of candidates in order to make his or her hire. And what that means is they trust that the recruiter has done the heavy lifting, that they know the job well, they got out in the market, they found pretty much anyone and everyone who could possibly do the job, vetted on their behalf, and brought the best candidates to them. So they're comfortable that they don't have to go back to the recruiter and say, who else you got? Did you find everyone out? Can I see the stack of resumes? They're confident that their recruiter got the job done. So they make their hires quickly. That's a hallmark of a solid recruiting team.
Fantastic. And I'll let you wrap up on the next couple ones here.
Okay, offer extended, get accepted. Obviously, that seems very logical, but it's often not the case. A great talent acquisition function is controlling the process from the top of the funnel through, and they know exactly where a candidate is, their attitude, their preference, and they're moving the people through the process who can do the job, understand the opportunity, like the company, and are willing to take the salary that's going to be offered. You don't want to lose a candidate at the last stage, the offer, because it's very expensive and very painful. If you're going to lose someone, lose them at the top of the funnel. But if you have a very high offer acceptance rate, it means your process is very well tuned. And it's just something that's easy to track. And if you don't have a high offer acceptance rate, you want to look at why.
Perfect. Kind of hit on this earlier, but Glassdoor ratings?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about the corporate ratings, the CEO ratings, and obviously recruiting doesn't have a tremendous amount of control over those. But there's another rating on a lot of these sites, and that's the interview process, where candidates can go out and learn what is it going to be like to be a candidate. And this is where recruiting has a tremendous amount of control. So make sure you're staying on top of what your ratings are. And if the ratings aren't positive, if the commentary is negative, for whatever reason, you're a black hole organization where you never hear back, your manager interviews are not logical, you get asked the same questions over and over again, whatever it might be, stay on top of your Glassdoor ratings because the recruiting team does control that. And if they're not positive, you have a tremendous lever in order to fix that, and you should, because it does matter. Candidates can interview at more than one company, and they're going to go to the one that has great reviews as well as a good hiring process.
True, so true. And let's talk about budget.
Budget. This is a biggie, and it's really important. And as you'll see, one of the hallmarks of a good, well-oiled, optimized talent acquisition function is appropriate cost per hire. And the key word here is appropriate. It's appropriate cost per hire, not necessarily low cost per hire. And that's because recruiting and talent acquisition is one of the most important functions in an organization. And in my mind, the most important organization, because if hiring is going well, every other part of the organization should also be functioning well because you're bringing the right leaders and the best talent to the organization. So your leaders are making good decisions and motivating teams. Your product development teams are developing the best products. Your sales reps are selling more, and your service teams are delivering the best customer service, and it goes on and on and on. So it's so important that you get recruiting right. And the reason why you want an appropriate cost per hire is oftentimes I see that companies are working with talent acquisition teams, and they've given them the mandate to carve out another X% year over year. Recruiting should be on par with other functions in the organization, such as sales. Organizations never try to produce the lowest cost sales organization they possibly can. They don't want to spend too much money, but they invest heavily in their sales teams. They should do the exact same thing for talent acquisition because they're actually performing very comparable activities. And so, because you cannot do this function properly without the right recruiters. So you have those that are well educated, they understand, they can have those business conversations. Those are probably not the lowest paid recruiters in the market today. Make sure you know what type of recruiter you need and provide them with the tools that they need. Remember, you're not going to just post and people are going to come. You're going to have to go find them. Your analytic tools, your sourcing tools, everything that they might need, and your data and analytics tools that help you optimize, educate, continuously improve. And again, this is another area where RPO firms can really add value. They have dozens, if not hundreds of clients. They have ROI data that shows how an investment here produces a long-term ROI that's positive for the organization, that makes investment one of the best investments that a company can make. Oftentimes, an internal recruiting team just doesn't have the data and the analysis or even the skill set to build those ROI analyses or to articulate what tools are really needed. And, additionally, RPO firms are actually investing in their core infrastructure. So they can bring analytic tools and recruiter training and applicant tracking systems that are properly configured for a much lower cost than an internal team can probably do themselves. You actually get more bang for your buck with an RPO in many cases.
Thank you, Jenifer. And that's, again, this is a topic that Jenifer and I have several hours, probably months or years of conversation on over the past, and this is probably something we can come back to as well. This next area is appropriate time to fill, and so what I'll ask you to do is I'll highlight this one. It's imperative not to get tripped up on like cost per hire, defining a 20-day time to fill or a 45-day. We have to respect the market as Jenifer has articulated, and really not put yourself paint yourself in a corner where there's an unrealistic expectation, and so you end up getting subpar individuals just to meet that time frame. So with that, we'll go through another topic that has a lot of conversation on, but that's throughput information. If you can cover that, please, Jenifer.
Yes. Again, another hallmark of a well-established talent acquisition function that's working properly is to have data. So cost per hire, time to fill, we just mentioned those. Those are tickets to play. Of course, you need to know what those are. More importantly, are you capturing data throughout your entire process? So just as an example, if you're looking at your year-to-date statistics, potentially, depending on the size of your organization, how many candidates did you have to reach out to in order to have them respond and even acknowledge you have an opportunity? And what did that mean for the recruiter? How many recruiter screens did they do based on what they learned? And what is your throughput going through each step of the process? And how do you compare to benchmarks? Are you doing better? Do you have room for improvements, and why? And how you get to having high quality throughput statistics. So if you think about sales forces, they have their salesforce.com or whatever CRM they're doing. They know where their pipeline is at. Recruiting should have the same thing. So you need a well-configured applicant tracking system. You need disciplined recruiters. You need coding that goes into your data. And then can you export this data? Do you have a data warehouse, reporting and analytics capabilities? And candidly, most internal recruiting teams may not. Again, another place where an RPO firm can bring significant value because they often have data warehouse capabilities. They can build you dashboards. So with a click of a button, you can get your throughput stats at a requisition level. Maybe it's on a department level, monthly, yearly, quarterly, whatever cut of the data makes sense. It's accurate, organized, and it's based on high quality input because you have disciplined recruiters working through an established process. When you have this type of information and you get in front of hiring decision makers or leaders who might be frustrated, they don't understand, you can bring in labor market data and actual throughput data. The conversation changes completely. You have a seat at the table, you're driving discussions, and you're solving problems together based on real business data. Super powerful.
Excellent. And it takes the emotion out of any play, and no one gets their feelings hurt that way.
Hey, yep, so and it's not emotional and it's not anecdotal, which is important. You're not using anecdotal data, you're using real data. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of folks have opinions, or they they have a heavy heart on particular pieces of the process or individuals they get attached to. So Jenifer, I'm going to put you on the spot here. So we're going to go to, these are hopefully takeaways that the audience can put in place, and again, compare where they are today, or put in place. But what I'd like to do is just go through a rapid fire here and ask if you can.
Yep.
I'm going to give you 1 minute per topic
Okay.
here, so I'll let you have at it.
Okay. Start with blocking and tackling. Make sure you have well-developed job descriptions. It's the architectural blueprint for your job. Your recruiters need it. And so if you don't have good job descriptions, make sure you get them. Oftentimes, hiring managers and recruiters are not the best people to build those. Consider your resources. Think about industrial psychologists. They happen to be very, very good at building job descriptions. But if you don't have them, it's job number one.
Excellent. Next one.
Launch calls. So this is often called an intake call. I use the word launch call because intake sounds too order taking to me, and it creates the dynamic that I'm seeking to avoid. Make sure before you commence on a recruiting effort for any one particular position that your recruiter and manager have gotten on the phone and had a bona fide business conversation. They're not only covering the job description, they're learning more about the manager, his or her management style. Why is this position open? What else do I need to know? Who's in your network? Here's how the interview process should go. Let's establish our timeline. There's a ton of things to cover to set the stage for a proper hiring event. And you can't just assume that because the recruiter has their job description that that's sufficient. So insist on launch calls.
Yeah, that's a great point, and one I think most organizations across the country are missed the boat on that. Next topic.
Track candidate opt-out at every stage of the hiring process. So we talked about offer accepts, and so when you don't have an offer accept, obviously that's someone's opting out. So you usually can track it at that stage. It's generally coming down to salary or something, but you really want to know your opt-out stats at every step of the funnel, and then you can start to share that with managers. If this position is particularly hard, why are people saying thanks but no thanks? Is it the salary? Is it the work itself? Is it after the manager's interview and they turned off the candidate? What is it about each step of the process where candidates opt out? Because that's real data that you can use to make business decisions and change the way the interview process and the hiring protocols go to ensure that more and more candidates stay in so that you have options at the end. So track it at every step. Use your data.
I love this topic as well. Next one.
Yes. Present your candidates live. Reduce reliance on resumes. This is really important. We speak and listen much more quickly than we do read and write. And if you do live candidate presentations as much as you can, I guarantee you, you will save many great candidates that should be considered and ultimately hired from managers just seeing a resume. They spend 30 seconds on it, one thing they don't like, and they put them in the out pile. And then your recruiter has to go back out to the market. The reason being is if you have a live presentation, the recruiter can set the stage and help a manager form an appropriate opinion rather than be maybe inappropriately influenced or incorporate bias by just seeing something on a resume. They saw a gap in employment, automatically out. Well, if the recruiter gets a head start and says, hey, John, or hey, Tim, you're the hiring manager, I want to tell you about John Doe. I just sent you the resume, pop it open. I know you're going to see that gap in employment. Just want to start with the reason why is X, Y, and Z. His wife moved to Atlanta. He followed, of course. Took him about 3 months to find a job, found a great job. You've now taken that factor out of the equation. You don't have to undo an attitude. You're driving the manager's accurate information. You will save many, many more candidates. And by the way, this is much faster. Your process will go faster because the managers will say, I know I'm going to get to your submittal. I'll go home at night, and then they don't. And a week goes by, and you still haven't gotten feedback, and then the candidate's gone. So it's very powerful.
Great points. Great points. Next one up.
Okay. Educate managers on their full role. Certainly they get to make the hiring decision, but just very simply, they also need to be an ambassador of the company. Why should they work at the company? Why should the candidate want to work for him or her? They need to be engaged, set their phone down, behave properly, ask good questions, make the candidate understand that hiring is important at this organization. They're respectful to the candidate. They appreciate the candidate's time. that is also their job. They have more than one job in the interview process.
Great. Last one.
Okay, another biggie. Optimize your requisition load per recruiter. So figure out what that is, depending on your role. Maybe it's 5 if it's really complicated roles. Maybe it's 10. For high volume roles that are repetitive, could be 20. The key point here is, though, to maintain it. You want a steady state relationship between the number of recs any one recruiter has at one time. That's very difficult for an internal team to do alone, because hiring surges and lulls. Most organizations set their recruiting capacity at what they anticipate to be the low points in volume versus the peaks, so they're not over indexed at times. And this is where an RPO is particularly optimal. They can help you scale up and scale down very efficiently without the agony. When you have a surge, they can bring more recruiters and coordinators and sourcers on quickly. And when that surge is over, they can exit them out. You don't have to hire, you don't have to fire. It's very efficient. Their recruiters come fully trained, fully loaded with the tools that they need. It is almost impossible for an internal team to compete with an RPO in this particular capacity.
Well said. Well said. Well, we have covered a lot of information today, and I trust the content will be useful for any company wanting to make the move to improving their talent acquisition program. Jenifer, as we exit today, what advice can you give to the audience?
Well, I think, for one, certainly don't consider talent acquisition to be a support function. It is a strategic function. It has to be considered a really significant part of your business. And related to that, then don't underspend. Certainly don't overspend, but don't underspend. You will not get the return on investment that you need in your organization if you are focused on carving out dollar after dollar, year after year. Also, do expect and demand full partnership between managers and recruiters. Make sure you have the right recruiting team so they can command that respect, but make sure that managers are engaging as peers. And then, candidly, given the upside to some of the things that RPOs are so good at today, given the investments that they've made in their line business and in their infrastructure, is definitely consider RPO. For projects, you could do full RPO, you could do project, you could do short term, you could do partial. There's a lot of options. They have a lot of information to bring, and more importantly, they have the teams, the process, and the protocols that are truly impressive.
Thank you. Great recap there. We'd love to hear from you. So please contact us to discuss your journey in perfecting your talent acquisition program. I want to thank the RPOA for allowing us to speak today, and of course, thank you, Jenifer Khim. I appreciate it. You'll see our contact information there. We also, one of my favorite, or my philosophy, and one of my favorite sayings to anyone is, hiring is one of the most important things a company does. Make a commitment to be great at it. Have a great day. Thank you, everyone.